Good afternoon to Robert Lee at 5:30 p.m. in Connecticut, and it is good morning to me, Bee, from the Bee Formless Flow-Driven CEO podcast. Welcome, Robert, to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Wow, wow, wow. There is a heap that we need to talk about this morning. And I feel quite privileged that I get to speak to someone like you who I'm going to call out a few things because, people don't generally like to promote themselves too much. Well, I'm not one, but Forbes 30 under 30, a CNN hero, an Obama leader USA, Youth Action Net Laureate Global Fellow, Hunter Food Policy 40 Under 40 awardee, and a Blue Ridge Labs incubee. I can't even pronounce that right. But there's some of your accolades, right? And then there's this amazing, and I can't wait to hear your story, but you went to NYU's Stern School of Business, did a degree in finance and accounting, had a career in the finance sector, and then took a pivot and, started your own company as CEO of Rescuing Leftover Cuisine, or RLC. And it's a non-profit dedicated to eliminating food waste and alleviating hunger. Wow. So I've just reeled all that off, and I just want to unpack all of that with you and hear the story around how it all began and, from finance now to what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks for going through those. I always feel like, there's a lot of struggle and the things that kind of made up that journey, but it's always, I guess, in hindsight, like, wow, yeah, I guess there's been a lot that's been done, but still I feel like it's just the beginning of the journey and there's just so much to do. So I'm excited to be here and talk about it.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us, Robert, how you started in finance. So talk to us a little bit about your finance career. And then what was the transformation, or what was the realization that this wasn't your purpose, if you like, and that there was another purpose that you needed to fulfill? Because, I can relate going from like a corporate role and then blood, sweat, and tears, putting all your effort into something like that, your whole career, and then all of a sudden having a waking up one day and just not feeling fulfilled. And I don't know whether that happened to you, but yeah, I'd love to understand how you went from finance into what you're, into RLC and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I think I mean I'll kind of paint a little picture of kind of my own background just personally, just because it would kind of explain a few things about kind of why I even chose finance in the first place. And I think
Yeah.
I always like to start with it because it is a bit uncomfortable as well for some people sometimes to hear. But truly, I think it really starts with my parents. They came from South Korea, looking for a better life, coming to the U.S. Typical immigrant story, I think that a lot of people have heard.
Mm.
Unfortunately for my parents, they just couldn't acclimate. They didn't know the language and they couldn't hold down jobs. So I grew up just thinking that food insecurity and like hunger was just like the normal circumstance. I thought everyone was going through it, and I thought everyone was just struggling. So it would be pretty common for us to just have like a bowl of ramen and that would be it for the whole day. I would
Wow.
watch my parents skip meals. And I only found out like in kindergarten that, that wasn't the case when kids would like do cute things. They would like, not want to eat the crust of their sandwiches or like throw out carrots and apples because I guess ill veggies or whatever. And so honestly, I just grew up rescuing food and I was just like, it was just second nature. I would be like, of course, yeah, food is, so essential. I would of course take it home and just rescue it and eat it.
Wow.
Um, so
So you would rescue, so from kinder, you would see children, not eating their crumbs and things like that, or eating their crust. And so what you would grab it and then almost take it home for your family. So rescue
I
it.
mean, not the crust. I wouldn't grab the crust, but for like baby carrots and stuff, they would be like pre-packaged. And so they just throw that out. And I was like, yeah, this like totally, safe. It's
Yeah,
clean. It's still in the bag.
yeah,
I'm gonna grab it, eat
yeah.
it.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, all kinds of things. Even milk. Like people would be like, they would be forced to grab a carton of milk. And I was lactose intolerant. I mean, I still grabbed the milk and I still drank it. Like it's just like,
Whatever it
yeah,
takes.
just,
Yeah.
whatever it takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, it was just natural. It would be like, of course, yeah, like why would you throw this out?
Mm.
Um, but yeah, different, I guess, perspective on food. I think a lot of people just see it as a convenience, something to get done so they can move on with their day.
Yeah.
And like they don't think about how much goes into making that food and what that food represents really. But for me it was just right in my face.
Yeah, right. So that happens, and then what how did you so then finance, so then you obviously were, very good at studying. So, what got you what yeah, what was the trajectory into
Yeah, the path was pretty natural. I mean, I think, with a lot of immigrant parents, they kind of focus on education as the
yeah.
way to kind of, break out of that cycle. And so, fortunately, I was able to go to a school that kind of, prepared me for college. And, I think I was really lucky to be a part of like scholarship programs that, pay for a full ride to NYU. And I chose finance specifically because I remember in high school thinking, man, there's no way I'm paying for medical school for like, what, like 15 years. Like, there's
Oh,
no
I
way.
know.
And like there's no way I'm paying for law school. There's no way for, me to like do any of this. And I had an older brother. So I was just like, thinking like, hey, either I get a job or I just do finance, right? And like it seemed like I could make a lot of money without any of this higher degree nonsense.
Yeah, yeah.
And
An expense.
and it just yeah, exactly. And so I thought it also was something I think that was personal to me where I was like, I just didn't want to go through the same thing that my parents had gone through, and I
Mm,
wanted to be able to kind of understand my finances and
mm.
understand how to navigate that a little bit more. And so that's why I chose finance. And I'm glad I did. I mean, I learned a lot at NYU Stern. Learned kind of like the language of companies, accounting, finance, etc. But as you were saying, I wasn't truly fulfilled. I think it wasn't, something that I wanted to do long term. It was something that I wanted to kind of understand and learn and have as a skill set.
Mm.
But when I was at college, I actually came across a club. It was actually like the first week. It was during Club Puff Fest in freshman year. I came across a club that brought leftover dining hall food to homeless
Oh, wow.
shelters. It was called Two Birds One Stone. Yeah. And I was just like blown away by them. I was like, I thought it was illegal. I asked them all these questions. And then I honestly joined the club only because they didn't work on weekends. And I thought that was like a huge problem. I was like, I'm gonna come in there, I'm gonna solve this problem. But once I did, like, did the weekend rescues, I kind of started seeing other problems. Like, why don't we work with all the dining halls? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do
Yeah.
that? Before I knew it, like it was just, 4 years of rescuing food as a club. And so after graduating, working at JP Morgan, I continued to just basically rescue food. And we had entered into a venture competition that kind of forced us to use some of the winnings. And so we formally incorporated. And it was only after about a year of working at JP Morgan when I considered actually switching my job
Wow.
and going full time on doing Leftover Cuisine. So
Yeah, right.
that's how it happened.
Yeah. Fascinating. Rescue, like this, that word in itself. Like, is that something that you like not created, but like, you talked about rescuing food from kinder. Is that like language that you always used, or were other people using that? Or is that just a common language when it comes to
I mean, it's common now. It wasn't common when I was growing up. I didn't even know the concept of food rescue.
Mm,
I was just, saving food that was going to go to
mm,
waste and
mm.
eating it, right? Like, it's like one of the things that, like, it's a crime. Like, honestly, my parents actually also even told me, I think it's like also like a cultural thing. When I was a kid, like, I didn't want to eat certain things. Like, I still hate cucumbers, for example.
I love
I still eat them.
cucumber.
But my parents would tell me stories. Like, they would be like, if you don't eat your food, all the food that you ever waste in your entire lifetime is going to be compiled, and then you're going to have to eat it after you die, like in your afterlife. And like I would hear all these like karmic stories like that. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I think it's a pretty common thing, I think, in Asian culture is like one of my friends who's Chinese, I'm Korean. But apparently in China there's like this saying where like every grain of rice left over in your bowl is gonna be like a future pimple on your wife's face or something like that. Some karmic
Yeah,
craziness, but
fascinating.
yeah, it's just a lot of, I guess, anyway, that's tangent. In terms of the terminology, food rescue, I think I didn't even hear it even in college. We were called two birds, one stone, and we would, you know, rescue the food. I think sometimes we would mention food rescue, but there was a organization I think that was based either in Ohio that was called Food Rescue. And I think the terminology of like the industry of food rescue in general wasn't yet like there, but they called themselves food rescue and like what they were doing food rescue. And I think that the terminology kind of slowly caught on. Um, and by the time it was 2013 and we had won the venture competition, we called it Rescuing Leftover Cuisine just so that we could make it super self-explanatory, like what we
Yeah.
did, because so many people thought it was illegal. But yeah, I think it was only probably like the last 5 years, 6 years that we saw that food rescue was something that people understood when they
Yeah.
first heard it.
I
Yeah,
totally get it.
yeah.
I've never heard of it, but I totally get it. Like rescuing food.
Oh,
Like
amazing. I'm
why
glad.
why waste it? So tell me,
Yeah,
you go
truly.
you go
Yeah.
from finance and you go into food rescue as a profession, right? And starting your own company. Did you get much resistance from people around or, family or, in terms of changing careers and,
So
why
much.
yeah, why aren't you pursuing if you like, the traditional career ladder versus what you're doing in terms of, fulfilling purpose and obviously doing what you're doing. Yeah, how did you handle that? Like in terms of the resistance and the pushback and, what are you doing? Especially coming from a culture and a family like yours, like I'm sure there was probably a lot of, you know, um, challenges put up to you.
Angst.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think, yeah, I could talk about this for hours, but I mean, I feel like segmenting it down from like parents to friends to even like my former boss. I feel like it was funny. Like my former boss, like literally was like, super nice, and he was just like, at one point, I think he said like, you know, what you're trying to do is illegal, right? And so, things like that. And like he honestly offered me like a part-time position instead to like help me transition and stuff like that. I really truly think that, the people kind of make or break kind of their experience. And overall the people there were amazing and super supportive. In terms of my parents, I do, it was interesting. I think, right from the start, I gave them ample warning. I was like, hey, I'm gonna leave my job soon. It's gonna happen. And I think they were just in denial the whole time and they didn't expect that I was actually really gonna do it. And because, I think a lot of people complain about their jobs, say they're gonna quit and then never do.
Yeah.
But in my case, I really did, and I think they were so surprised, super shocked. They didn't talk to me for like 6 months to a year.
Wow.
And I think they saw it at first as kind of a betrayal of kind of the sacrifice and work that they put into helping me, get this career and everything. I think also, they were always very supportive. They're actually the very first donors of RLC. But I think, it took them time to kind of realize that, they sacrificed a lot to come to the United States. And, part of the opportunities that they provided was to do something like this, right? To
Mm.
take a risk. And I think uh more people need to take advantage of that. I think obviously it's really scary and it's obviously like a huge risk and a huge undertaking. But it's one of those things where you know, I think more people need to do it to kind of, you know, break further out of,
Yeah.
the
It's it,
mundane and also just you know.
I
Yeah.
could not agree more. It's like almost like take the calculated risk, right? Like you can always go back. You can always go back. Like
Yeah.
I totally get
Yeah.
it. In terms of just that, it's the fear of the unknown, isn't it? It's that uncomfortable unknown. Like you go from a regular paycheck to then, oh, okay, I'm starting my own thing. How's this going to work? Not for profit, in particular as well. But, it's interesting because I see it a lot too. And, I even see with certain clients that, you can tell that they're struggling in what they're doing. There's something out
Yeah,
for them. But there's also that, I'll just stick to what I know because it's too scary. And yet,
for
generally, when
sure.
you take that first step, if you like, it's not as scary as it seems. Do you relate to that? Like, do you agree that it's ne never
Oh
as
yeah, for
simple as it?
sure.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways I do. It's interesting because I think I'll be honest, I think it's not for everyone. I think
No.
also some people um are people are all over the map, right? Some people are too optimistic and
Yeah.
overestimate their skill set, just like me. And some people are too pessimistic and underestimate their skill set. And I think that like no matter the case, I think you're absolutely right. Like taking a small step, doing a little pilot, you know, getting a little traction, getting a little momentum can really kind of, make or break. I feel like for us, for example, for RLC, we started with us, all three of us, the co-founders were all just working full time on other things, and then did this on the side for a year. We had a budget of like 30K. And that 30K was what we used to pay my salary for that first year. I took a huge paycheck cut, of course, but it was well worth it, I feel. And I think that like starting from zero is daunting and highly risky, right? And so
Yeah.
I think it's best to do pilots and to see if it works, see if there's,
Productive.
some, proof of
Mm.
concept. Yeah, before
Yeah.
going all in.
Yeah.
Um, but to each their own. I think some
So,
people
so
clearly
three,
succeed.
yeah,
So
right.
yeah.
So three founders, and how many years have you had the business for now? And t talk us through a bit of a day in the life of the company and, what you're doing at this point in time with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started in 2013, registered 501(c)(3) nonprofit, C Corp, and essentially, day to day, right now, we're really trying to grow. We did a lot during the pandemic and
Mm.
kind of reacted to it to ensure that, people who had lost their jobs during the pandemic didn't have to, struggle to find food. But also our food donor partners, we help them ensure that they can, produce food and find alternatives. And of course, reduce the amount of excess they had. Um, Ever since the pandemic ended, obviously there's been a slew of other problems, including inflation
Yeah.
and here in the US, at least, the migrant crisis. And so we've kind of refocused on, ensuring or at least pushing towards more and more awareness for food rescue, and really getting to the point where food rescue becomes a universal standard, right? I mean, it's common sense and it really should be commonplace.
Mm.
Our belief is that easily within our lifetimes, we can kind of see this becoming the new standard. Um, I kind of liken it to a lot of different things, I think, in the food industry, in the F&B space. I think, firstly, I think actually just about maybe 3, 4 years ago, there was like this massive, what I felt like overnight movement of going from plastic straws to paper straws.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that was global,
Yeah, it was.
but in the US, I felt like it was like overnight. And, when I looked into it, I realized, oh man, that had been in the works for years. And so, we got started in 2013, 12 years now. Um, and we see a lot of really great momentum, right? We see that, when we first started, we were printing out that Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act of 1996, showing people that it was completely legal and safe to donate food. Now we don't have to do that. People know what food rescue is. And so the true struggle is trying to get them to understand that we could plug right in, make it easy for them, donate their excess food, get enhanced tax deductions, get reduce food disposal costs,
Mm,
save money, but also like use it as a marketing tool, get more revenue by talking about it, by showing their customers that they share the same values as their customers, right?
yeah.
And
Okay.
so in general, our day to day is really focused on finding more food donor partners, bringing them on board. We're super excited about new initiatives such as working with a lot of different stadiums. Last year, we started working with Citi Field, home of the Mets, as well as Fenway Park. And then this
Wow.
year, we started working with the Play Center. And so there's just a lot of places, right? Like places you don't even think of that have all this excess food that's incredibly, good quality that can be donated instead of thrown away. And so, yeah, we're just, you know, keeping that pressure, on and
Yeah.
trying to get, more people to participate now.
Yeah. I've got two big questions just on everything you just talked about then. First one being, and this might be a naive question, but in terms of food rescue, is there some sort of education still around, people viewing that as scraps or like food that you shouldn't be able to consume? Like how do you break that down? And then my second question, which kind of is part of this, is so you rescue the food, you partner with different, organizations, etc. What do you do with the food once you've rescued it? And I guess that's where I kind of go, people like, yeah, they're two questions for me that are coming around, and I'm just wondering if that's their standard questions or, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, whenever there's two questions, I'm going to forget one, but I'll start with the food scraps question. Yeah, 100%. There's, I think, so much education in general around any nonprofit. I feel like there's
Yeah,
just so much to kind of communicate and to kind of, display on the food scraps versus actual kind of edible food
yeah,
piece. I think that is definitely something that has always come up and I believe probably will continue to come up in our journey. One of the reasons why we actually named the organization RLC and rescuing leftover cuisine, specifically cuisine, was that we can kind of elevate that
take it higher
and
order.
thought and kind of and to kind of plant in people's minds that it's not you know plate waste that we're trying to rescue. It's the food that's been produced, sometimes overproduced,
Mm,
in the kitchens that don't make it to customers' plates and can be rescued, can be completely fine and would have gone to a customer if not for the fact that the restaurant's closing in 15 minutes or
yeah,
whatever it is, right?
yeah,
um so yeah, there's so many different, things to educate people on, and that definitely is one of them. Worst thing that we can do is get someone sick on the food that we rescue, and so we of course always adhere to strict food safety standards and ensure that the food that we provide is always, safely handled, and rescued. We only work with food licensed food vendors as well, so all the food that's, being rescued is in no way, shape, or form, scraps or anything like that. But
yeah.
um in terms of the second question, which was, oh man, I almost had it. I almost
So
had it.
what do you
What was it
rescue the
again?
you rescue the food, and then what do
Oh
you
yeah, where does it go?
yeah, where's it go?
What do we do with it? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Um, for yeah, so when we rescue the food, you can think of us honestly as kind of a logistics company, in nonprofit form. We transport the excess food, right? So we partner with restaurants, food businesses like catering companies, cafeterias, stadiums, like I mentioned, and we rely on them to package the food, ensure that the food is, within the safety standards, temperature, whether it's kept in hot holding or cold storage. And essentially, we transport that food from point A to point B. And we work with homeless shelters, soup kitchens, food pantries, even like housing authorities, and essentially anyone that works or provides food to food insecure populations. And so essentially we have a team of volunteer and paid rescuers who transport the food from these food businesses to these nonprofit recipients.
Wow.
And that's all we do. Yeah. I mean, the fact is there's so many nonprofit recipients that need this food, that run out of food
Yeah.
every single night. And, they don't have the resources, they don't have the capacity to go and pick it up. And so we're happy to be that, transportation solution, so that the food doesn't go to landfills, and that, people can actually eat that food instead.
Yeah. And how big's your team? Like, do you have a big team that work within the
I
company?
mean, we're a small team. I think, we want to be lean and
Yeah.
efficient, and, we want to do far more and we want to grow far
Yeah.
more. But right now we're 15 people full time. Want to continue to keep on growing and make it more of a, universal standard, but let's see what it takes to get there.
Yeah, it's a big vision, it's a big dream, and I can totally see you doing it. What do you see as the biggest challenge as a founder, CEO, leader of a not-for-profit? What do you like, what do you see as that biggest challenge, but also
So
opportunity?
many challenges.
Mm,
I think honestly, I mean, there's so many. And I think the one that often comes to mind is honestly talent. I think people, I mean, in the age of AI and all this, kind of hype around it, I feel like there's less and less attention on, talent and people. But truly, I do think that even when I was working at JP Morgan, what JP Morgan used to say was our biggest asset, and obviously, they're talking about, like real assets, is our people.
100%.
And I honestly have to agree. I feel like, you know, the fact is, at the end of the day, people are the ones using the AI tools, it's not like the AI is using themselves. I mean, I guess not yet, but even then, I just feel like there's just so much that people have to do, and I think that finding the right people is tough in a nonprofit space. We can't compete on wages
Mm.
as, easily. And it's just a lot harder when that reality is there. Um, and so, even for kind of smaller businesses too, I think it's harder to compete on name recognition as well, right? Like you don't attract top, the as many top talent folks because people haven't heard about you. They don't even
Yeah,
know to apply, right? And I
yeah.
think that same applies to us as well. So I'd say that's definitely one of the biggest challenges
Yeah, it's
amongst a
breaking,
lot of other
yeah.
challenges.
It's breaking down the bias and the barrier to not-for-profit, isn't it, really? It goes
For
back to
sure.
what we were talking about earlier in terms of, you know, going off the going on the non-linear path is not necessarily for everyone when it comes to your career. And you talk about people, right? And people are we're so ingrained and attached to this success and material wealth, etc., etc. It's almost like not for profit is here, and if I change careers, am I going this way? And that's me just
Yeah.
generalizing. And so how do
Hmm.
there's something really interesting in terms of almost, more and more, I'm noticing that people are, especially since COVID, they're looking for more purpose in and fulfillment in what they're doing. Like it changed everything really, didn't it, COVID? And so it's like, how do you then break down that bias for people to get the top talent to come in and see that you can be successful, but it's a different, type of success where you're redefining what success looks like. And success is, of course, ensuring that the business is profitable, but it's also then that intrinsic fulfillment, that intrinsic motivation. It's not all extrinsic. There's something really interesting in that and breaking down that bias and barrier with the talent that you're
For
trying to
sure.
attract. Is there anything that you do differently to attract people to the business?
I think differently in terms of other companies, or differently from ourselves like 5 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah, cool. And so what is
For
your
both.
what's your hope and what's your aspirations for the future of RLC?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, well, I was actually asking a clarifying question, but
Oh, sorry, I
you
didn't hear
know,
you.
no,
Sorry, what is
it's all good. I just wasn't sure if you were asking, if we do anything different
yeah.
hiring wise versus other, smaller, other small businesses, or differently from, like 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Although it was a
on the
question.
hiring front.
Yeah, like what are you doing differently? Are you to attract better talent? Is there something that you are doing differently?
Oh, but like it differently, like sorry if I'm just not understanding.
Could be the
Differently
Aussie in
against
me.
competition
Pardon?
or differently from like 5 years ago.
Um, Differently probably from the competition and also
Okay, cool.
yeah, a bit of both actually. Like probably
Okay.
the game's changed a bit, in terms of talent, from 5 years ago, but probably what are you doing
Yeah.
differently more so with competition?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, against competition, we're definitely, talking about the mission and the vision, right? Like, you're joining a team that's, trying to change the world, right? Like, it's kind of, cliche and a little bit, I think a lot of for-profit companies are also doing that though.
Yeah.
Right? Like even, I guess Facebook is, their mission is something like, connecting the world or something like that. I think, on top of that, we really, I think, have a very unique culture at RLC, and I think that that piece is something that we kind of talk about and highlight as something that is truly, I think, unique in that we really do, have a kind of very results-oriented kind of environment, and also one that doesn't just, want you to kind of be working all the time, right? And like having a little bit of work-life balance, right? And
Yeah.
having that balanced with everything. And so, yeah, I think, we have a I think unique culture that kind of helps, helps to find the right people. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, differently from years ago, I guess is, less of a question, but, I think our hiring process has kind of, continued to evolve and probably will continue to evolve. But, um, yeah, I think some folks find it weird, but we honestly start off with like having people leave a voicemail at at our number, at our main line. And I think that turns off a lot of people.
I love that. What's the
And,
Yeah, that's cool. What's the voicemail they need to leave? Like, do you have a question for them, or is it just like,
Yeah, we have a set of 5 questions for them to answer and just leave on a voicemail. Super quick, nothing. I think it's just because we have a small team. We only have like one HR person. And so and also like our team doesn't have that much time to like meet with like so many candidates, and it just helps ensure that people know how to follow instructions and are game to do what we need them to do. I think that like there's just so many different creative approaches that we're gonna try. And some people might think it's weird. So
no,
we want to, list for that as well.
I feel like it's connection, right? You've talked about like culture, you've got a unique culture. And then, you've talked a lot about people and, even your JP Morgan boss, and it was all about the people. And I'm all about the same thing. You lead for your people. It's all about your people. You're nothing without your people. So
Yeah,
and going back to even AI, like you said earlier, like what we were talking about, there's still this real need for human connection, human
for
potential.
sure.
And so then how do you screen it in terms of, and you're finding a way to do it with regards to getting people to talk essentially and not hide behind, like emails
Yeah,
or that sort of thing, because that was
yeah.
the other thing
You
that
definitely get
COVID,
a sense of the person.
yeah, you get a sense of the person.
Yeah.
So, like there probably is a little bit of resistance of, oh, I've actually got to answer these questions. But
Yeah,
it's results focused from the get-go, isn't it, really? Because you want a result out of the, kind of the pre screening, if you like,
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Which is awesome.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
AI, a couple of more questions and then I'll let you go. AI,
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you,
sorry, I didn't answer your other question about our hopes and dreams, but yeah,
oh
sorry.
yeah, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to leave that as our last question. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten.
That sounds good.
AI, have you thought about incorporating that into your business? Have you started to in any way, shape, or form, or is it something that,
Yeah, I feel like we were pretty early adopters of ChatGPT and,
yeah,
other AI tools. I think, when you're, under-resourced and trying to be as resourceful as possible. I think you latch onto any tool that will make you more productive. And so we definitely saw that in ChatGPT and various other tools. I mean, even like recently with Gamma AI for presentations and various tools. I think there's just so many opportunities for us to leverage AI. But yeah, like you mentioned, there's just a lot that humans need to do. And so yeah, I think it's funny to see companies that have operated without AI all of a sudden saying like they're I don't know, like backed or AI like driven or run. And so we have a matching um I wouldn't even say algorithm to like match the food donors with our nonprofit recipients. It's kind of just like a list that it goes through and just like,
Yeah.
hits up. Um but I've seen, food rescue organizations get tempted to, say that it's AI. It's like an AI like matching thing, but like, yeah, it's, I think in a lot of ways, some of the hype is just hype.
Yeah, 100%. And it's going to remain quite hypey for a while. I can't imagine a world without it nowadays, but I think it's back to your point around how do you leverage it from a productivity sense. And, when it comes to results, like to get to your results, you've got to focus on what you need to focus on as the primary focus, but then you can use it for, all the menial tasks that, that
Yeah,
are going to detract you.
so key.
Yeah, so key.
I
So
use Fathom just like, yeah,
yeah,
I haven't really seen and read AI, but
yeah, I mean, there's so many, right? Like but it's great.
yeah,
Like
so many.
it's like a contact report, like straight after it just spits it out. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
truly.
cool.
Oh, so
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So great.
And a collaborator. Last question for
Yeah.
you. Well, actually, I've got two more. This is my second last. Hopes, and not dreams, but what's your hope and ambition for the future and an RLC?
Yeah, I mean, truly, as we, think about the future, it really does kind of, start with that grander vision of trying to, make this more of a universal standard. And I think that as we work with more food donor partners, as we rescue more pounds of food, it becomes more and more of a habit for our partners. And so that's why over the next kind of 5 years, our plan is to try and double the number of pounds of food that we rescue every year from 5 million pounds of food to 10 million pounds of food.
Wow.
So that's our, hopes and dreams or goals. Try to do that. And, along the way, maybe one day we wake up and see that, it's approaching the tipping point.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. And last question, it's a big one. If you could change something right now, what would it be?
Oh man, there's so many. How
You've
can you
got
ask
one.
that
You've got
question?
one. I'm giving you one. Just one. Just one.
Oh
If you could
man, and
change one
it's like Greenfield. I could change anything. I could give everyone wings. This is crazy.
thing. So is it
I'll
you?
stick to,
You
oh, sorry, go for it.
go. You go.
I'll stick to the theme and say I would change it so that everyone values food and doesn't waste it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a big one, isn't it? Like if we could change just one thing right now and that everyone values food. I'm certainly going to look at food differently today. And, yeah,
Awesome.
I'm still got that rice, that little rice in a bowl story in my head. Like,
Yes,
and I'm
very
not a
karmic.
waster. I'm not a waster, right? But I'm like next time I see someone doing that, that's something that I'm going to value food. And how do you make it more habitual that food rescuing is what we should be doing whenever we've got anything
Yeah,
that's left over. I think that's something that you could
yeah.
really, yeah, how do you make it more habitual in the day to day? Robert, you are an amazing human, and what you're doing with you and your other co-founders is
Thank
incredible.
you.
How do we find out more? Is this on the global stage or is it in the USA at the moment? Like, how do we find out more about and watch what you're doing and to hit your 10 million pounds? in the next 5 years?
Yeah, just in the US for now. We definitely, consider going global and had, requests across the world. But there's no guarantee that there's a Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act in all, the countries that we would love to operate in. So would require a lot more kind of, legal background and work there. But for now, just the United States, we want to, make it a thing here and make it universal here. Um, but to learn more and to support, our website is rescuingleftovercuisine.org. Definitely check it out and support if you can.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put it in the notes. Well, thank you, Robert.
Awesome.
It's been a wonderful chat, and I've thoroughly enjoyed
Thank
uh,
you.
connecting and meeting you. And yeah, I can't wait to watch what you do next. And who says, why wouldn't you take on the world and check all the legalities around it? And maybe that's one of your next big, you know, part of the 5 year plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
aim high.
One day.
Yeah, one day. All right. Well, you have a lovely evening, and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you.